All right, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lindsay Humphreys and I'm the Program Director for Junior Achievement of New Mexico. Welcome to our Inspiring NM Student Conference. Thank you to the New Mexico Society of CPAs who has partnered with Junior Achievement to make this amazing conference possible. This conference was designed to provide New Mexico students with the opportunity to hear personal journeys of business professionals in various careers in finance. During the remaining 3 weeks of this conference, we will feature 2 speakers per week, a speaker on Wednesday afternoons at 1 o'clock and Thursday mornings at 10:30. During these events, you will hear our speakers share details about their education, their job, and their career journey, as well as some very valuable skills and concepts for your own future economic success. Before we get started, just a few virtual meeting reminders. This meeting will be recorded and posted onto our YouTube channel. And for everyone on the call right now, the recording has started. At this time, please type your first and last name into the chat box. And if you're an educator or a parent and you have students on the call with you, please just let us know the number of students that are with you in attendance today. During the speaker's presentation, all of our mics should be muted. And then if you have questions during the presentation, just jot them down into the chat box and I'll facilitate those during the Q&A portion of the event. Today, we are so excited to welcome Attorney General Hector Balderas. We are honored and thrilled to have him and his team share with us all today. Attorney General Balderas, I will hand it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. My best to Junior Achievement and the Society of CPAs. We want to thank you, me and my team, for allowing us the access to really speak to and to partner with some of the best students, not only in the state of New Mexico, but the best students in the country. You know, I'm excited to kick this off because I am going to be introducing 2 colleagues who are phenomenal members and very important members of part of my team. But before we get into their portions of the presentation, I wanted to briefly really share why this is such an important topic for me and why Junior Achievement is such a good partner to really helping families across the state of New Mexico. You know, my primary job as Attorney General is to keep consumers and families safe. And then secondly, it's to guide and support and protect families so that we can grow and prosper and make many great memories and really raise our families in the state of New Mexico. But oftentimes we run into problems, and so families will call me when they're at their biggest time of need, where they've been scammed or they're frustrated because they don't have the economic security, and it leads to other areas like violence and crime, and then we ultimately end up not protecting children the right way we should. So I see this as an opportunity, first, to tell you a little bit about my personal story, and then second, as Attorney General, to partner with Junior Achievement and many of the bright young minds moving forward, because ultimately the future really are these students and the teachers that are protecting these students and inspiring them to serve really are part of my long-term solution to make New Mexico safer and a more prosperous community. So my personal background, just so you know, is I didn't wake up one day and become Attorney General. I was a young student, very scared, and didn't understand financial literacy very well. In fact, I was raised in poverty. And so even though I became more educated and began to earn my own money, I didn't know how to use those resources in a way that would help me build my life. In fact, I didn't have the skills, so I overspent. And the first time that I got a really decent paying job at the age of 21, I went out and I bought a Camaro that I could not afford. And I didn't know how to get out of that deal, so I gave the car back. Subsequently, I ended up having to file bankruptcy because I didn't have those skills. Even though I had a job and I thought I had the car that I wanted in my dreams, I wasn't prepared, and I didn't have a plan. So I had to learn the hard way, and I've turned things around, and since then I've had jobs where I'm in charge of billions of dollars of assets, and I investigate and I prosecute bad actors who commit fraud. So that's kind of my personal story. The second piece of why we're here and what I want young people to get from this presentation is The team that I have put together today is really giving you a toolbox, not only to build your dreams, but it's tools to keep the scammer and fraudsters and all the bad actors that want to steal and take your money away. Because I was also a victim of fraud many times as I was growing up and getting older. So without further ado, I just wanted to let you know we see you as partners. These are not boring topics because ultimately these topics are what going to drive the dreams of the young people that we live in today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katherine, and then you get to meet Jennifer, who's a law enforcement officer. Katherine is one of the best educators in the state, and Miss Webber is one of the best criminal investigators. And I'll turn it over. So thank you very much for having us. I wish you the best, and we're all behind you very much. Katherine, you can take it away.
So real quick, hello everyone. My name is Katherine Trujillo. I am the Special Projects Coordinator and Educational Consultant for the New Mexico Attorney General's Office. And today I am going to present on financial literacy. So here we go. So what I do want to share, since this is going to be 5th grade all the way through 12th grade, I'm going to kind of improvise some of the information I share. So we have 5 topics we really want to focus on and goals when we talk about financial literacy. The first one being budgeting and setting financial goals. And since you guys are youth, we want you guys to really understand income and expenses. So now is the time for you to start understanding and mastering how to control spending and saving your money. And key points we really want to focus on: starting a budget. Since you guys may have to do chores around the house, when you're given money, how do you save it and start a budget? Remember, budgeting focus is on prioritizing income expenses. And in the future, you are going to have expenses. If you buy a new car, if you go to college, if you are renting an apartment or even a home. And then savings, putting aside money now that allows you to have money to spend later. That's going to really help you. We're going to watch a video real quick, and I'm going to have them share for me with you.
More items on your to-do list than hours in the day? If you're in college, you know exactly what we're talking about. But there's one thing you should never be too busy to do, and that is taking time to make a budget. A budget is a financial plan that will help you make smart spending choices today while preparing for tomorrow. Budgeting will help you achieve your goals and prepare you for unexpected bumps in the road. So what goes into making a budget? First, you'll need to track your income and expenses for a particular period of time, such as a month. You can use pen and paper, a spreadsheet, or a budgeting app. After that, making your budget comes down to a simple equation: what you earn minus what you spend. To determine your income, include items such as wages earned at work, allowances from family, and student financial aid such as grants or scholarships. To determine your expenses, include items such as tuition, books, rent, credit card payments, and car payments. Then simply subtract your expenses from your income. Are your earnings greater than your spending? If so, you could choose to invest, buy a new cell phone, or simply save for a rainy day. But what if you spent more than you earned? If that's the case, it's time to cut back on your expenses and balance your budget. You may also need to find a way to increase your income. Remember, everyone's budget is unique and it will fluctuate from month to month. So use a budget and be mindful of your daily expenses. That way you can make sure you're spending your money on things that really matter to you. When you budget, you decide where your money goes instead of wondering where it all went. And there you have it, the basics of a budget. Now it's time to create your own. Go to studentaid.gov/budget to get started.
So just like we saw in that video, those are things that we want you to be mindful of when you're thinking about financial literacy. So number 2, the goal for the next one is consumer skills are based on informed decisions. And what we want you guys to think about is comparison shopping. So when you go to the store and you're wanting to look for either video games or purchasing food items, it's really good to comparison shop. So start looking at some of the flyers and sales that are happening throughout the city and seeing which one has the best price. And we want you to think of it, comparison shopping is getting the most bang for your buck and shopping around before you make a purchase. Number 3, understanding the risks of credit and loans. And we want you to think about when you become 18, when you start getting credit card agencies wanting you to apply or try to be approved for loans or credit cards. We want you to think really clearly when you do take out a credit or a loan that can cause debt, and debt should be avoided as it counts against your borrower's total health. Now, there's also a positive when you take out credit or loans, and that being there are the risks. Borrowing on credit comes with risks, interest charged, and borrowing money. You do have to pay it back. Insurance, there are always mitigate risks by purchasing insurance that pays back the policyholder. And insurance can cover health and property like cars and homes. So positive benefits of credits and loans. Think about when you take out a credit card, you do have to pay it back. And if you're making those payments on time, that builds a positive credit. And credit is a tool that can be good or bad. Credit card debt is typically bad as it charges interest on your purchases as a borrower. And then loan debt can be good because if you're borrowing money to pay a student loan, to go to school, it allows you to financially get an education with hopes of earning a higher income when you graduate. And again, building your wealth. This is another positive of taking out credit or loans. By taking a credit or loan, it gives you an opportunity for financial goals such as education or home ownership. A borrower can start building wealth while paying off debt. So again, if you're paying off your bills in a timely manner and you're never late on payments, saving and investing are the best strategies to build a healthy wealth in the future. And then again, future education and career choices impact your quality of life. So after you graduate high school, you might want to start thinking about what career you're wanting to go into. That could correlate with education and your positive earning potential. How much money do you want to make in the career field that you choose? And key points, earning potential. Again, a lifetime income potential is how much you're going to expect to make with a top salary at the highest height of your field or profession. And then again, if you take the education and career steps now, needing to achieve those professional goals and financial goals, you're going to do really well. And what we want to reflect on is thinking about money where you're having to budget, having to make more money than what you're spending. So think of it as the plus and minus in your future, the plus being the money you're taking in and the minus being the money you are spending. So keep that in mind when you think about financial literacy. Thank you, guys.
All right, so I'm going to take over. My name is Jennifer Webber, and let me get my slideshow set up for you guys real quick. Lindsay, can you see my first screen? Thank you. Excellent. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Webber. I'm a certified fraud examiner, and I'm also the special agent in charge for the New Mexico Office of the Attorney General Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. So currently, I help investigate cases of Medicaid fraud, which are cases against the New Mexico Medicaid system that are committed by providers of medical services. Kind of unique. It's not somebody trying to scam the system and get services they're not entitled to, but it's the providers that we actually investigate. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. What I want to talk to you about today is actually more general white-collar crimes and some ethics surrounding white-collar crimes. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Albuquerque. I'm a graduate of Valley High School. Go Vikings. Nothing against the other ones, but you know how we are. We like our alma maters, right? We have to support. So during my senior year of high school, I was a student at the Career Enrichment Center. And at the Career Enrichment Center, I participated in a program called Money, Power, and Success. And I thought that this was going to be the end-all, greatest thing ever. And I learned so much. But it also gave me an opportunity for an internship at New Mexico Educators Federal Credit Union. I started as a teller, a part-time teller, and after I graduated high school, they hired me on full-time while I was going to, it was TVI back then, but it's now CNM. So I progressed from teller to lead teller to supervisor teller. I ran a branch for a little while, And then I decided to step back and get a little bit calmer interaction, and I went to the customer service over the telephone. And that just wasn't as exciting as I wanted, quite frankly. So I went to the collections department. Wow, what an education I received in the collections department. I was the overdrawn account specialist, and that is where I really started to learn about fraud. We got some education about fraud when I was on the teller line, but really it was at the collections department that I really started to learn about the scams, the motivations, and how people were covering up what they were doing. It was quite educational. Now, growing up, I always wanted to be a police officer. So when I was finally old enough, because you have to be 21 years old to become a police officer, I joined the Albuquerque Police Department, and I absolutely loved it. I had the most fun I can ever explain while working patrol and supporting my teammates, going out, helping out people and kids, and interacting with my community and really making a difference. When I decided to start a family with my husband, I went on light duty, and they being my supervisors, assigned me to the white collar crime unit. I've got to be honest, guys, I was not very happy. I wasn't happy because I had done the financial crimes thing already at the credit union, and that wasn't exciting for me anymore. I wanted to drive fast, I wanted to chase down bad guys, and I wanted to have fun. But you know how they say, trust your elders, they know what they're doing? This was one of those situations. They knew what they were doing. My experience at the credit union and with the banking background was really valuable in the white collar crime unit. So valuable that later on I was actually recruited to join the Attorney General's office. All right, what is white collar crime after all? Well, white collar crimes are financially motivated crimes. They do not rely on force or violence. So when you think about crime, a lot of times people think about burglaries, like breaking into a car and stealing something, robbery, where somebody takes something by force or by violence from somebody else. Those rely on force and violence. White collar crime does not. Most people think about white collar crime as being a professional's crime. Think about a stockbroker, a banker, an accountant. But the reality is that anyone who works could be a white collar criminal. In fact, anybody who makes money or wants money can be a white collar criminal. It can be somebody in a professional setting, like a bank. It could be a bank teller stealing money. It could be somebody in a law firm. Who knows? But it also can be somebody working at the cash register at a store or at a restaurant. And some white collar crimes include identity theft, where somebody's using your information without permission, fraud, where somebody's lying to you to get money, embezzlement, where you've trusted them with something and now they're taking it for their own, public corruption, money laundering, securities fraud, which are also known as investment fraud. There's mortgage fraud. There's healthcare fraud, like I said earlier. There are so many different white collar crimes. But you know what they all have in common? Trust. Trust is an essential aspect of white collar crime. You may have heard of the con man. The con man, or the confidence man, is actually able to get money from individuals based on lies, deceit, and deception. So fraud, as I said earlier, relies on the lie. And fraud is a very common white collar crime. And in most cases, we actually can charge fraud at some point in it. And that's because the victim who is defrauded, so it could be yourself or the AG, like he said, he was a victim of a fraud. They rely on a lie in order to give money to somebody else. So the fraudster relies on that misrepresentation of facts. Now, fraud can be used for many different types of crimes. In white collar cases, it can be used to convince a bank to give you that loan that Katherine talked about earlier. It can be used to defraud a store out of donations for a school project. You lied to the store about what the project really is. We've seen a lot of fraud with natural disasters. And even closer to home, fraud can be used to steal money from your neighbors. I want to give you a case example, and I've got a couple different case examples to share with you today. But one of these cases actually was an elderly woman who was defrauded of tens of thousands of dollars by her neighbor. And what happened was he went over to her house one day and said, you know, I'm having a hard time meeting the electric bill this month because I just can't make it. I was sick. We don't have sick time, and I'm just a little bit short on the bill. Do you think you could help me out? And she was a very loving and caring neighbor, and she said, yes, I'll be happy to help. Well, this grew and grew and grew. Eventually, she was paying for his rent, his electricity and utilities, and even his groceries every month. And this happened for over a year, and it all started with a simple lie. But she trusted him. And remember earlier I said it revolves around trust? It's important. One of the things that we look at in white-collar cases is what we call the fraud triangle. In 1973, criminologist and sociologist Donald Cressy, he had been studying white-collar cases for 20 years, doing a ton of research on it. And he developed this hypothesis that every fraud case actually has these 3 points: pressure, rationalization, and opportunity. Now, the pressure is something that is felt by the individual. It's unique to them. So it might be something felt by me that you can't feel. It's some sort of personal pressure. And it encourages me to steal money or encourages me to commit fraud. Now, you also have to have an opportunity, right? But opportunities come opportunities come all the time. So like the store clerk we saw earlier, stealing money out of the till in that picture, we can have the opportunity to take money, and then they rationalize that behavior. They might feel that they've worked really long hours. They might feel like they deserve more money because, they've been there for a long time. Or in some cases, they've seen others do the exact same thing. And so they feel like it's okay and accepted. What I want to get back to, though, is that trust aspect. And trust involves ethics. When you're in a position of trust, it's because you've demonstrated that you have ethics, integrity, and you're responsible. And Katherine said it a moment ago, when you're building out your credit, it shows that you're being responsible about repaying the money. And banks and credit unions and financial institutions, they all rely on that responsibility, and they end up trusting you. And that's one of the reasons why they extend credit to you. But here's the thing about ethics. It's not a one and done thing. You have to constantly feed your ethics, and you have to constantly show ethical behavior. You can't give in to temptation for the easy dollar. You can't give in to the temptation of overspending this month and trying to make it up next month. And the reason is it will all snowball on top of one another. And it becomes very easy to slowly chip away at that ethical standard. So you saw the clerk earlier at the cash register taking the money, and you saw the individual who was reaching around the side of the cash register. Both of those individuals were trusted at that moment. So the store trusted the clerk not to take the money. And whoever the clerk was at that second cash register trusted that the customer wasn't going to do anything inappropriate. Well, unfortunately, they took advantage of the situation. But imagine for me now, what if your friend was the clerk stealing the money? You might actually rationalize the behavior because you know that person. It's really easy to say, that'll never happen to me. I'll never know nobody in that situation. But what if you do? What if you're the clerk and you're tempted? Not give in. Don't give in to that. Don't slowly chip away at your ethics. The reality is that white-collar criminals all started as ethical employees, as ethical friends, and as ethical neighbors. They felt a pressure, they saw an opportunity, and then they began to rationalize and justify why it was okay to do whatever they were doing, why it was okay that they were stealing money, why it's okay not to pay something back, right? So they all start to justify it. Don't do that. Don't chip away at your own ethics. Why should you care about it? Well, as the AG said earlier, white-collar crimes and scams are prevalent, and we are trying our hardest to help protect New Mexicans, because what we've seen is that white-collar crime can destroy a company And I actually want to give you a quick case example. When I was working embezzlement cases for the Albuquerque Police Department, one example of a case was a lady was the bookkeeper and office manager. She had access to all of the credit card information, all of the bank account information. She actually did all of the payroll too. So she had full reign of everything. Now, her husband actually was an employee of the company as well, and she gave her husband a raise, and she decided to start using the company credit card for personal use, and she started to pay her own bills. She paid for her landscaping at home. She paid for her laundry services. She paid her children's tuition at a private school. She even paid for a $25,000 cruise for her and her husband. Now, you're wondering, how did this go unnoticed, right? Well, she was the company owner's daughter. She was trusted completely. And in the time frame that we reviewed, we discovered that she embezzled over $2 million from the company. Here's how she rationalized and justified it. She thought, well, I'm going to inherit this company pretty soon anyway. All of the money is mine. So there's one. She had the opportunity because she was in control of everything. And then one of her pressures was that she was used to living a fancy lifestyle. She grew up with money because her father had done quite well. And her salary and her husband's salary just didn't cut it. That lifestyle that she was used to living wasn't sustainable on her salary. So she started stealing money to sustain it. It is amazing. So that's one of the reasons why you should care about it. It can destroy a company. This company, thankfully, they were able to come out from under it only because the owner had built up a strong reputation in New Mexico, and he had integrity, and everybody that he dealt with trusted that he was going to make everything right. And that was so critical for them. But it can destroy a company. It can devastate families. That family no longer talks to one another. The grandparents don't see the grandchildren anymore. The husband and wife are now convicted felons. It can wipe out life savings. They had to actually give into their personal finances to try to support the business for quite some time until they recovered. White-collar crime costs our community millions of dollars every year. And if you look at investment crimes, it actually costs billions of dollars, especially if you start talking about Ponzi schemes like the Bernie Madoff thing. I'm not even going to get into that because it is so much more than what we have time for. But here are just a few headlines for New Mexico over the last few years. White-collar crime is not going away. That's the reality for us. But you have the choice in maintaining your ethics and putting a stop to it where you see it. So if that means encouraging your friend not to do something bad, or when you are tempted yourself, step back and away. So you have the choice of maintaining your ethics and your integrity and resisting that temptation. So the next time you find yourself in a situation that tests your trustworthiness, tests your ethics, or tests your integrity, think about how white-collar crime impacts our community. Think about how it impacts New Mexican families. Think about how it could impact you or your neighbors, and choose the right way.
Thank you so much, Jennifer and Catherine. That was so informative. Thank you so much. We're going to move into the Q&A portion of the event. I'm not sure if we still have Attorney General with us or not, but we were going to go into the Q&A. So if we want to act as as a panel, so I'll pose a question from the chat box and a question from the registration, and then everyone can just take a turn and answer. That would be great. So the first question we have, and we ask all of our speakers, is what is the best advice you've ever been given?
I do want to say, when you think about your future career, always think about doing something you love. If you love the job you're doing, it's not a job at all. And that is just crucial. And I've been lucky enough to experience multiple different careers as a past flight attendant, as a car hop at Sonic, as a principal and an educator, kindergarten through 5th grade. So always think of what you think is going to be fun, exciting. And Jennifer shared some of her experiences too, that, why she really loves her job.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is so critical. You have to really embrace and love what you're doing because quite frankly, I spend more time with my coworkers than I spend with my own family. So I have to really embrace them and really start to love what I do. And it makes it easy. It makes it really not feel like a job anymore. But one of the other things that is really important to me as an individual is just always staying true to what is right. And I oftentimes harp on the whole integrity and ethics aspect because it is just so important for growing up and for really making a place in the world for yourself.
Thank you so much. So we are moving into the Q&A portion. So if anybody would like to pose questions into the chat box or unmute, that this is the time. You can use the raise your hand feature and I'll address you. So one of the other questions we have from the registration is, what is the easiest and hardest part of your jobs?
Go ahead, Katherine.
So the easiest part of my job is definitely in the Attorney General's office. I get to still work with students and throughout New Mexico, different schools, different staff, different communities, and that's always been something I've loved. So that's the easiest part, presenting to people, talking to students in ways that give you a positive light on how you can make things happen in the world. You be that positive light that can change the world. And the hardest this past year, just having to telework and working from home. I love being able to see people in person. Now I'm looking through a computer screen and still presenting. So that's been rough.
I agree. That has been rough, especially because we're so social, right? Many people in our office are extroverts, and we thrive on that daily interaction. So that has been very challenging this last year. And I'm sure the students all feel the same way. I think one of the easiest things about my job is actually just getting up and coming every day because I love what I do and because I found joy and found a purpose with it. I also love teaching about fraud. It is just so funny how life changes and those roads take you different places, because if you would have asked me, 15 years ago, if I would ever be in the position I'm doing now and enjoying it so much, I would have said you're crazy. And when I said that, our elders, they know what they're talking about and they know how to recognize our strengths. And I think it's really important for us to give them the time to tell us those things, because we don't know it all. And it's really important that we embrace what other people have gone through, what they've seen, and what they think they can offer us. And advice from people who have been there before is just always, it's just a wonderful way to start out. The hardest part of my job in law enforcement, I think the hardest part of my job is when I am stuck somewhere with something. And that being more like I have a case that I'm working, and for whatever reason, maybe the law isn't exactly written the way this case fell through, and I can't do something to help that person. That's really, really difficult. And I think if you talk to any law enforcement officer across the country, they would agree that those cases where their hands are tied over something is really difficult.
Thank you so much. There's some questions from the chat. So Everett is a 4th grader who bakes and sells pet treats. He comparison shopped cans of tuna on the internet and at stores to make his tempting tuna cat treats. He wanted to share that with you.
I love it. That's great. So there's financial literacy right there.
Excellent. And then another question, or a question is it important to make a budget if I only have an allowance and make money helping my grandma with yard work?
So I think it's critically important. And I have 2 kids of my own, and my son is in 4th grade. And my son, his name is Liam. He started a pooper scooper business in our neighborhood. And so he made up flyers and he scoops dog poop for the different neighbors, and he earns $5 a yard. But one of the things that he and I talked about is the importance of investing money back into his operation. So he's got to save up money for his tools or his supplies, and being mindful of how much the tool or the supply costs him and how many yards he has to clean up to pay for that. So all of those little things, even though it might be a very simple project or a very simple job, it's critically important. One of the things that I learned when I was younger, actually when I was an intern, I put it in perspective for myself. I thought about how many hours do I have to work to afford this? And when you put it in that perspective, when you have to say, I have to work 3 hours to do this dinner party with somebody, or I have to work 15 hours so that I can go to the movies and go somewhere else to have fun, you start to look at things a little bit differently. And so I think even for a fourth grader, developing a budget and sticking to it and understanding the value of money early on is just so critical, because it'll take you much further in life.
And I agree with Jennifer. We did a couple of junior achievement lessons in classrooms. I think we went to a second grade classroom and a fourth grade classroom. And those are some of the concepts that we had to, teach skills on. And thinking about, one of the first jobs you could get being a newspaper boy, newspaper girl, or even a babysitter. And thinking about, okay, how much am I going to make per hour? And what am I going to do with the income that I receive? Am I going to save it? Am I wanting to purchase something? It's great for you guys to be mindful of that early on, because in the future, you set your goals at a higher rate. Well, how much of an income do I want to have? What kind of luxury do I want to live in? Those are just really good skills to learn early on.
Thank you. A question from Miss Casey's class. A couple students want to know, what are the top skills you need for your job?
So for my job, definitely people skills. Interpersonal communication is key. One of the things that's really nice about it is how much interaction we have with people. And for anybody who's ever dealt with a police officer, there are some that are kind of brisk and there are some that are very warm. And so having that interpersonal variety, if you will, is really, really critical. You need to know when things are softer and things are harder, and approaching each of those effectively is critical. Also, patience. Patience is so important. And I will tell you, I struggle with this still. So believe me, it is not something that you just learn overnight, but patience is critical.
And mine are pretty close to Jennifer's. Good public speaking skills, a background in education. I did have to go to college for my licensure to become a teacher and administrator. And again, patience. If you're working with, youth, or having to work in big groups, being patient to, be able to get everybody's attention back on you. Having really good skills on attention getters and ways to keep a big group focused and attentive. Those are all things to really have good positive skills, and engaging your audience. So those are the skills.
Thank you. A question from Ms. Bruker's class. What types of technology do you need or use in your job?
Well, in my current role as a supervisor for Medicaid fraud investigations, we use a ton of technology. And we use data mining, where we're actually looking at large-scale data sets and how to pull the information that is valuable out of that. So some computer sciences type skills. And I will tell you, so just a little side note, I'm also a full-time student getting my degree in accounting. And that information, learning some of the data analytics aspects on the job, and now in my accounting classes, I see how they all mesh together very nicely. And it has been so much better for me in both avenues, understanding this. So if you could get into the data analytics, words, early on, I think that you'll do so much better. Technology is always going to be something, and that's something we have to embrace and really learn to love, because it can be very difficult, especially those of us who've been working for longer. Technology can be a little bit more challenging, but we have to embrace it and learn to love it. I think that probably everybody on this call is better at technology than I am. Just as a result of the age group, right? And that's just a reality that we have, but continue to learn it, continue to practice it, and find areas to apply it regularly.
And one of our most requested presentations for New Mexico schools has been the online safety and cyberbullying. And it's based on, where technology is now. The group of youth that are now, have been in that whole digital world, they've had cell phones, they've had video games, online video games, the live chats, and social media. Social media is crucial. These are all things that, technology based again, but ways to be safe online. And myself, the technology background that I had to be trained in, I was cross-trained in our ICAC unit. They're the Internet Crimes Against Children unit. And being able to know, protocols for safety online and ways to inform our communities, our parents, our staff on things that are looked for our youth, and things to be very mindful of and careful of while kids are online. Especially with this last year, the distance learning and all of the education being online, we had to be really good about sharing information that, parents need to be looking for this, students being mindful of their peers, not to bully others while online, and respecting their, peers and the presenters. So technology is not going away. It's going to advance. My husband's in telecommunications, and he does all the fiber optics and cell phone towers. All of these things have grown so much in the past 20 years, and it's going to continue to grow.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give the opportunity for anyone to unmute and ask a question. Otherwise, I'll come to our final question, and we'll be respectful of everyone's time. All right. Okay, so the last question I want to ask is, was there ever a time that you messed up or failed at work, and how did you recover?
Yes, absolutely. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are how you learn. Mistakes are how you grow, and it is okay. The important thing for us, though, is to always be honest about it. Admit when you've made a mistake, even if you're going to be in trouble, right? It's important to always be honest, because quite frankly, the punishment for making a mistake is there. The punishment for making a mistake and then lying about it is much, much worse. And in law enforcement, integrity is paramount. If you lie about something, you no longer have a job. And so I always go back to being honest. And everybody's made mistakes. Be honest about it, and then learn from it and grow.
And I'm going to feed right off of what Jennifer said. Same thing, integrity, and just that ability to trust someone. If you failed at something, again, guys, that is something that always helps you set your goals higher. You reach higher goals when you have a failure. And I think about this as an administrator and a teacher. When our students fail at a test, but you give them an opportunity to relearn those skills they didn't get the first time, it winds up making them stronger learners. And I love that we're making this the last question, because everybody winds up failing one point in their life, but it's not giving up. That's the most important thing to remember. Do not give up on yourself. Just set your expectations high and reach them. And you guys can do it. I know everybody in this world has those goals, and failure's not the end of the world. So remember that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you to Attorney General Balderas, and thank you, Ms. Webber, and thank you, Ms. Trujillo, for sharing your knowledge and taking the time to be with us today. And thank you to the students who are on the call. But before we log off, we just have a few announcements. Following the presentation, we will be sending out our post-program mindset survey. By completing the survey, you'll be entered into a chance to win a gift card. We pick a new winner each session, so keep filling out those surveys every session. And teachers, please make sure that you send the links to your students as well. Lastly, please join us tomorrow as we welcome Cedric Robinson from Fidelity. Cedric will be helping you understand saving and investing for the first time. And so keep an eye out to your emails to register for that if you haven't already. And if you have registered, just keep an eye out for your emails for that tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, ladies, and thank you so much to Attorney General for being on the call with us. And we hope to see you all next week.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Take care.